So what happened there at the end of the last video? Man, I had a major coolant dump. Almost got to the end. It was out past 22.5 minutes. So the cam's essentially broken in, but Lunati wants me to go a full half hour. And their profile says after the 20 minutes, you should run at 3,000 RPM for a minute, 3,500 for a minute, bring it back down in 500 RPM increments. What you saw happen was the engine overheated when I went up at 3,500 RPM. The reason it boiled, I saw the gauge on the dash getting into the red zone, and normally that means these engines with a 50-50 coolant mix will boil somewhere around 260 to 265 with a normal 15-pound cap on them. And so it looked like it was getting ready to boil, and I was considering shutting it down, but I was also watching my scan tool, and my scan tool told me that I was only running about 240 or 245, which gave me some headroom. And I know that I had just put a new coolant temp sensor in the intake manifold. So I was debating with myself, which one of those signals to believe. And at that point, my wife noticed that it was starting to steam. She could see it come out, and you can see her run up to the bottle and look at the steam on the video. Then I realized what was coming up, shut it down, and you probably couldn't hear me, but I yelled at her to back up, which is because I was afraid it was going to do something bad, which it did. Ultimately what happened was the lower radiator hose blew off, pushed off of the water pump on the engine. And as soon as the pressure was lost on the system, the whole thing boiled, and most of the coolant was dumped and ended up on the driveway. So I had to go back and hose down and clean down the entire engine compartment, wash it down with a garden hose, clean it all up. I had to go out and buy more coolant because I didn't have enough to replace that much. We let it cool back down again and got it all cleaned up. And we're gonna go finish it off here in a few minutes. You'll see us take another run at it. I'm feeling pretty good with where we ended up. It ran good through the whole thing. For those of you who've worked on these cars before, I had that lower hose installed. The clamp was torqued down, one of those stainless steel worm drive clamps. But a lot of times when the engine gets hot the first time and the hoses soften up, some of those clamps lose a little bit of tension. And it was running fine with a 15-pound cap, but when the system boils like that, you generate a lot more internal pressure than the cap can handle, and you end up running a lot higher than 15 pounds. And so we just pushed the hose off. I've got it all back together. We'll take another run at it, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
stop. Then we stop. That's okay.
Okay, it sounds like it was spoiling again. I don't know if that's just
It's okay.
coming off from the time. Okay.
Got 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's stuck.
Plug the alternator back in. So hey, success, it runs, it's on the road, it lives. I'm happy. This is great. It's been a long, long run. 2 engines, 2 engine builds. A lot of work getting it back together the second time. But now you actually saw it turn tires on the road. And I'm excited. Who would have ever thought, well, that it would take so long? That, you know, when I bought this car, I had someone who had put a wrench on the crankshaft and turned it. Told me he had turned it, and that the engine would turn. And when I bought this car and put it in my garage, I thought I was going to get to roll it over, clean it up, do a few things, and light it off and drive it. Who would have ever guessed that it would been, I'll call it an ordeal of sorts, to work through so many things, to make a car that, this car was parked in 1993, and it's just been sitting in the garage for over 25 years. And in a garage out of the weather, yet the engine was rusted, the fuel system was bad. They obviously didn't do any, I'll call it preparation, to put the car in dry storage for that long. So I've worked through everything. I'm happy it's on the road now. Granted, I've only driven it about, 2 miles, but it runs. So I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep updating. You'll see more video as I work through, because while it runs, I'm sure I'm not done shaking things out. I've managed to get it to run in the driveway and work its way down the street and back. But there's a lot of work to go through in the break-in. I'm not sure that that there aren't other systems in the engine that it doesn't idle quite right. It's a challenge. It's a nice car. It feels good in the first run. 1985 IROC, and it's been parked a long time. I said everything was there and everything was in generally good condition, but remember, it's the car's 35 years old, and so there's work to be done on the interior and the trim and tires and you name it. There's a lot of work still to come, but this is a great first step to actually make it run down the road. I know on the first engine I got it on the road for about 20 miles, but it was dying. It was really feeling bad. This time it feels good. I mean, when I took it out and drove it for that little bit, when I tip in the throttle, it's responsive. It doesn't hesitate. It drives right away. I didn't hit it hard because, shoot, the engine's got a half hour on it. But it felt really good. I'm much better than the first go around. That first engine, it was in trouble from the get-go. There was no doubt about it, and it just took me a while to realize it and understand it. So now, this feels like a great start. Like I say, I'm sure there's diagnostics to go through, and there'll be a lot of learning as we go. And I'll share that with you as I can.